SpectrumTv, broadening your horizon.
Hello, Nigeria. Welcome to Rise and Shine Show. My name is Tom.
This is Rise and Shine. My name is Ubong Kings.
Shine Thursday edition, reaching you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuren. And yes, we are your preferred breakfast show in the history of television broadcasting. And I stand to say that again. Yeah, I don't want to be corrected. Yeah.
Of course, why should you be corrected when you're stating the obvious truth about life, about who we are and what we represent on the Rise and Shine show? It's the best of the best.
Yeah, my name is Otobasiton.
And I am Francis Zaded. Welcome to Rise and Shine.
Of course, if you are in Nigeria and you're a Nigerian and you live in Nigeria, regardless of whether or not you're a Nigerian, you would know that a lot of persons are going through some funny situations, for lack of a better word, I would say, for their stubbornness.
I wouldn't want to agree with the word stubbornness.
Well, no.
I would like to say for, because of situations, you know, some unforeseen circumstances.
Well, we like fancy words with these
planning.
things. We like fancy words with these things. You know, for once, let us blame Nigerians. Because all the time we're always talking about government isn't doing this, government isn't doing that. Well, yeah, those are facts. But then this time is under citizenry because of the NIN SIM registration. Now, Nigerians, this policy started quite a long time ago, since 2014, registration for NIN. And it will shock you to know that out of let's say approximately Nigeria is a population of about 200 plus million Nigerians.
About 215 plus million.
If you know that women, youth and children are the majority, then you could say that 80% of Nigerians, that approximately 150, and then with that number, only 70 million Nigerians have been able to link their NIN so far as at December last year. And the number is sickening. It means with all the, you know, there's hardly a time that you will place a call across that the network service providers will not tell you, register your NIN, connect your NIN to your SIM card and all of that. So if you are a mobile phone user, you must have heard that message several times, and yet a lot of persons still had to wait for the dying minute.
Well, like I said earlier, I wouldn't want to throw the part of the word stubbornness because I have to be a realist at the end of the day.
What sort of reality?
No, I have to be real.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
okay,
okay.
yes, there are two things involved. First is having a SIM card, and the next is having the NIN. Now, before you have the NIN, you have
being
long before
opportune.
now.
I had registered my NIN long before now.
Okay. So if you had challenges, then I recall getting to the NIN registration. It has taken me more than 3 years to getting to register.
Still having issues with NIN registration. It will shock you to know that quite a couple of persons have NIN, but have not been able to, whatever the case might be, because everyone has, and I heard of a person who said, I know federal governments will extend the debt. I know him. Shocked the number of persons that are linking up their NIN with the SIM card now, which means that they had registered for NIN, refuse, or perhaps maybe could
just
not
deem it necessary.
Exactly.
Okay, so I understand and I agree with you. There are some elements of, you know, people, some group of people who would have that mindset. I mean, we are in Nigeria and it's the Nigerian situation oftentimes. But then we should also consider those persons who would probably have done the needful had they gotten their NIN.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've seen situations where people consistently visit the NIN registration centers and come back without being successful. And then you're talking about over how many local governments scattered across Nigeria. And then these NIN registrations centers are not adequately being circulated among the different local government area. So chances are, especially for people in the rural areas, that persons will have to spend days, weeks, months before being able to even register. And then you're not even talking about the issue where you get to the registration center and you're told, oh, we don't have light, or we don't have fuel, or the computer system has broken down, or we cannot print, or one thing or the other at the end of the day. And so when people get to consistently go to these places and are not successful in registering, chances are they'll give up and then relax. And then you're looking at persons who would have to also take care of their daily needs. So for instance, if I'm working and I have to take permission for say 2-3 days, which is not even possible in most establishments, I have to take permission for a day or two, and I want to go do registration for NIN, and I go for those 2 days and I'm not successful, chances are it might take me another 6 months before I can get the permission to go do the same thing.
Well, I think the policy of getting a national identity number is one lofty policy, because, I don't know, we pride ourselves in being the most populated black nations in the world, but then Nigeria lacks the database to know exactly how many people are in Nigeria. Now, the idea is to know who actually is a Nigerian, to be able to check issues of security and migrants coming into Nigeria, because, you know, we are very accommodating people. We absorb a lot of persons, and anybody can come stay in Nigeria for a certain number of years, and you may not actually know who is a Nigerian, who is not a Nigerian. The issue is typical in the northern Nigeria, where you have Nigerians come in and mingle around. They speak the same language, and identifying who is difficult. Now, the policy was lofty. I would want to talk about the process. Now, has that been achieved? Because to a large extent, going to the Federal Secretariat to register for NIN is not enough. And you're talking about the stress a lot of persons are going through to be able to get this registered. That's because you just have basically a center or so. I feel this should be done at what levels? This should be done in the villages, in the village council, so that individuals can be identified. Anybody can walk in there and provide documents. I mean, documents, is there any means of verifying which is authentic and which is not? No, to a large extent, no, because I've gone through the process. But then, if this is done in villages, it will be difficult. It will be easy and accessible for individuals, just like what with your house and register. But issues with identity has to be tracked to individuals' origin. Now, if that is done, it will reduce the ease of by which people get themselves registered and then access the NIN number. That is on the first place. And issues with identity, to avoid people who are not Nigerians getting the NIN as well. I mean, the process has to be thorough. And that is true. Then the issue of linking it with your SIM card is to checkmate security issues in Nigeria, so that there is lofty. It's just for Nigerians to have trust in the system and try to see how they can help the system to forge ahead.
The idea is lofty, is a beautiful policy, is a policy that Nigerians are open and welcome to have. But then, you know, a lot of government policies oftentimes comes half-baked to the Nigerian people. For instance, you want to have everybody in the, who is a Nigerian register and have an identification number. What is the best system to be put in place? I mean, it's like the society. We are told that the family is like the center point where the society is built from. So if you have to achieve any success, you start from the family. If the federal government had actually intended for the Nigerian people to have that national identity number registered all across boards, the best and the first thing they should have considered would have been to set in motion the right system. And that right system would have taken care of, like you rightly mentioned, from the basic, from the very root cause, from the community level, from the ward level. And that way you would be able to reach the average person who is a farmer, the average person who is a worker, the average laborer, and even those in the civil service, and outside those from the civil service.
Absolutely.
But when you've not put in place that system that will allow everybody the ease of registering and having their NIN, and then you have not provided the materials that are needed for the offices or the agency responsible for the registration of NIN to issue out the NIN promptly to people, then you've already created the problem yourself. Because guess what? regardless of the fact that we want to get our NINs, we want to link our NINs to our SIM, we welcome the policy. When it becomes too tedious for us, everybody's going to back down.
And that's exactly what is playing.
And that's
out.
the problem.
Because I know when I wanted to register for my NIN, it was difficult. I got there and I met like 100 persons already there. And I was like, what's the possibility that I'm going to be able to register my NIN? And at a point I wanted to use it like seriously. Then I left that day. I went back a week after, the same situation. And you know, with the Nigerian system, a lot of lobbying. You see a security person around the secretariat come down and then get the oath and get this and get this and with a little tip, and that is done. And an average person who might not tip would have to stay there a whole day or sleep over and come back. Now, would you
still not be successful?
Now, how would you have a farmer come out from a rural community to Uyo to register NIN and then stay there for 2 days or so? Once the person gets back,
it's not going to be possible.
Once the person gets back, that's over and done with, regardless of the consequences. The person might not come back again to say, okay, I still want to get registered, because to the person what's in need of having a NIN.
It's a simple question. Now, if the Nigerian federal government actually, if I were to be given the chance to speak to the government, in my opinion, I would say, okay, you have the database for persons who have registered for NIN. So if there should be persons who should be barred from using the line, it should be those persons whom you know have their NIN. They have registered, but they have refused to link it to their NIN. Okay? Now, from the database, you should be able to know, because the name you have on your SIM card, when you purchase your SIM card and you register your SIM card, should be the name you have. Your official name should be the name you have when you're registering for your NIN. So the target of those who should be banned from the call services should be those who have actually registered their NIN and have refused for one reason or the other to not link the NIN, and not those persons who are still struggling to even get to register and have their NIN. Because it is not their fault. It is the system that is faulty, not the Nigerians.
I feel this scheme has been postponed. You know, for I think about 9 times now that you know, we're going to bat SIMs that are not linked to their NIN and all of that. The warning has been given prior now, I think at 9 different times. This is the 10th time before this takes effect. And one would wonder, what were the modalities from the end of the government to get people to register more? It's not enough to say, yes, your SIM will be barred. Now, and I heard my SIM will be bad, and I want to go register, and I still have challenges registering. I feel government should come together and see how they can, you know, get more centers closer to the people, where people can register for this national identity number, and then, you know, at ease, and then get it released to them at ease. Because quite a number of persons in town, I bet if you pass one, the second person will tell you,
and there is another angle to it as well. Now, there are persons who have registered their NIN, and they have their NIN, and they have made several attempts to link their NIN through the provided channels with their SIM card, and it's not successful. On the streets of Uyo, for instance, yesterday, while going back from work, in the keke I was in, there were people arguing. And what was the argument? This particular person gave out a typical example of what I've experienced. I have 2 lines, for instance. I have my Airtel, I have my MTN. My Airtel was registered immediately. But since I sent the message on my MTN, it is yet to be registered. So if my line gets bad, is it because I didn't register my NIN or didn't attempt to link my NIN to my SIM? It is not my fault. It is the network providers. So we have to consider all the variables. We have to consider all the challenges before taking a decision.
Well, in the end, I think the service providers would have to, you know, do something about it, because quite frankly, some service providers, yes, it's just like instant, and then you send a dial and then it's registered. And for other service providers, it's not the same. But you come to think of it, do you know how much they will lose as service providers for embarking on this kind of project? Because quite a number of persons would have recharged their lines and make calls, but you are bad from making calls. You can only receive calls.
You can only receive.
So in other words, perhaps between yesterday and now, one person would have exhausted 200 naira. You multiply 200 naira by, let's say, approximately, let's
5
say,
million.
5 million Nigerians.
And you know
and
what
you know
you're
how much,
losing.
I hope this lasts, because with the kind of money the service providers are losing, I think they will have to rethink and maybe open again and give Nigerians a second chance on
Well,
this.
like I use the example I just mentioned. I think every network provider at this point, every major network provider in Nigeria should make it a job, their obligation to interface with the government if we're going to be successful.
It was an
And
order.
they
It was,
should-
it was an executive order from the president.
Yes, it's an executive order, but an executive order to a business people, to a business conscious group of companies. And these persons are in business. You're in business to make profit, right? So
Absolutely.
if persons do not recharge their phone, if they do not buy data bundles, if they do not buy your services, at the end of the day, you lose out. And when you're losing out, it's not the government that is losing. So they should at this point raise the concerns that is not just their concern, but the concerns of the average Nigerian person.
Now, there are worries. A lot of persons, these things happen and a lot of opinions come through. A lot of persons are concerned. Okay, you want these people to link their national identity to their SIM cards, to checkmate security, to track calls and all of that. But then, how well would this be viable? Because to a large extent, the banks, for instance, they have account numbers. I mean, no human being opens an account or owns an account with the bank without proper data
BVN.
and all of that. But you see frauds. Recently, I heard someone say he got some money from a loan app, and then he tried to pay back several times. Then he couldn't pay back. At some point, he entered his NIN, I think BVN, and then what happened was that some money, about 50-something thousand, was taken out from his account. And he was like, he went back to the loan app and checked. Did not valid. But this money did not move out of space. This money actually moved from one to there.
Well, I wouldn't want to go there, but I know that the banking system has a lot of lapses. I mean, we're used to situations where you use a POS, for instance, and the POS gets to charge you and the money is deducted, but it doesn't reflect in the POS operator's account, and you have been debited. And since the POS person has not been credited, you don't get to go. And then you get to your bank and they tell you it's the POS. And then you get to the POS and the POS person possibly provides you with his or her bank details to show you that the money in question never came to his or her account. And you do verification and you get to find out that it never actually dropped in the POS operator's account. And then the money is still not in your account. You get to the bank and they keep you going back and forth. Now, I had a similar incident. I traveled to Lagos in 2020, and then just when I felt that I had gone to Lagos, the normal parlance that if you go to Lagos, I mean, they must steal something off you. Just when I felt like, I'd been to Lagos severally, I've come back, nothing has been stolen off me. One morning, I just woke up. I went to the POS. I wanted to take out some money to go do some stuff, and then I was told no money. In an account, I had severals of hundreds of thousands in. And I'm like, how does that happen that I don't have up to 40,000 naira in my account? It's not possible. So after several attempts with the POS agent, I started receiving alerts. On a Saturday, the first batches of alert was more than 200 and something thousand naira. And I had to call all of the numbers on my banker. And none of them was responsive. I sent emails, nothing was done. I had to wait till Monday. And getting to the bank on Monday, my account was wiped. And guess what the bank told me? Oh, you bet. You do bet, spotty bet. And I went mad because in my life, I have never for once done white paper, as it is called by young guys, or do betting. I'm not even a sport fan to even know what sport or how to go about betting. So I went mad. I went busy inside the bank and I attacked the customer care. Sorry to use that. Like, I went wild. And at the end of the day, when the manager now came and said, unfortunately, there is nothing we can do about it. You've been scammed. So probably you have exposed your card, MasterCard details, and somebody have picked the details, and then I've used it to scam you. And I said, should the bank not have a way to track who has used my details? when I've not been the one
Okay,
authorizing
which
it.
account did the money actually move to?
Which account did the money move? And they said from the Sporty Bet, this thing, the transaction, the debit we have is somewhere in Lagos. That means you were. I said yes, I was in Lagos. That was like some 3-4 months ago.
Quite a sad story to remember at that point.
If you look at that, you will know that. I mean, we are Nigerians and we are getting scammed on a daily basis, even from the banking sector.
Well, it's a serious one, and quite frankly, I think the new situation must be looked into critically so that Nigerians can have access and make calls, the service providers can do business, and of course, federal governments can ensure security of lives and property in Nigeria, and all hands must be on deck to achieve that. But at this point, we'll move quickly to the news brief text, but Brad James is standing by. Please stay.
Come, Ukpabio.
Iyayo.
Ukpabio.
Iyayo.
Ukpabio.
Iyayo.
Come, Ukpabio.
Iyayo.
Ukpabio.
Iyayo.
Ukpabio.
Iyayo.
Culture is defined as a way of life of the people, ideas, customs, and social behavior of the people. Nigeria is home to about 370 ethnic groups with over 500 languages. There are 8 recognized ethnic groups in Nigeria, including the Hausas, which make up to 25% of the Nigerian population, Yoruba, 21%, the Igbos, 20.5%, Ijaw 6%, Ibibio 4%, Tiv 3.5%, Fulani 3%, Kanuri 3%, and the others making up a huge 14%. A community shares a main culture, and there can be subcultures within the main culture. Culture, therefore, and safety. Provision of continuity among the unique dance form and music. The Ibibio. The Thieves have the Swange dance, Manuwu dance. Fulani Hausa have the Koroso dance. Every culture has a strong affinity for her food. The Ibibio Efik have the Afang soup amongst others. The Igbos, the Oha amongst others. The Yorubas, the Ewedu soup amongst others. The Fulani Hausas.
As of government, Secretary General, delegates.
This will be Lagos, Nigeria for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses taken to planting.
Good morning. Here's the Spectrum TV News Brief at this hour. I am Bright James. First, in our news today, is a report that President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the immediate redeployment of Mohammed Abdullahi as the new Minister of Environment. According to statements released by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, the development took effect yesterday. Away from that, 1.5 million people have applied for 5,000 available positions in the recent recruitment into the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps NSCDC. The Minister of Interior, Rav Oregbeshola, confirmed this, also noting that persons living with disabilities were among those who applied for the available positions in the Corps. In a separate development, Managing Director of the Bank of Agriculture, Awan Ali Al-Hassan, who is one of the kidnapped victims of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack, has regained freedom from the terrorists. He was among the passengers who were declared missing by their families. Elsewhere, the National Union of Rail Transport Workers, NURTW, has sacked Ms. Liu Akinsanya, also known as MC Oluomo, as the Lagos chairman of the union, also announcing Sheyi Bankole as new head of the Lagos chapter. Now to the foreign scene, where Ukraine's deputy prime minister urged residents of the eastern regions of Kharkiv, Luhansk and Donetsk to evacuate. This is as fears grew that Russia will intensify attacks there. Now to sports, where the Super Eagles midfielder Kelechi Nwakali has accused Spanish Segunda Division side Huesca of intimidation after the club terminated his contract for representing Nigeria at the 2021 African Cup of Nations AFCON. The player made the comment in a post on his Instagram handle accusing the La Liga side of withholding his wages. Details of this and more in our news bulletin at 12. I am Bright James. Thank you for watching. Back now for the continuation of Rise and Shine.
As of government, Secretary General, delegates.
This will be Lagos, Nigeria for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses taken to planting.
Culture is defined as a way of life of the people, ideas, customs, and social behavior of the people. Nigeria is home to about 370 ethnic groups with over 500 languages. There are 8 recognized ethnic groups in Nigeria, including the Hausas, which make up to 25% of the Nigerian population, Yoruba, 21%, the Igbos, 20.5%, Ijaw, 6%, Ibibio, 4%, Tiv, 3.5%, Fulani, 3%, Kanuri, 3%, and the others making up a huge 14%. A community shares a main culture, and there can be subcultures within the main culture. Culture, therefore, serves the following benefits: creates a sense of belonging, builds stability, which engenders feelings of security and safety, provision of continuity among generations. Every culture is unique in itself, but mostly shares semblance in some ways with others. Every culture has a unique dance form and music. The Ibibio Efik can boast of the Etigi, Abang, and Ekombi dance forms. The Thieves have the Swange dance. The Yorubas have the Bolojo and Bata dance. The Igbos, Egu Ogene, and the Manuwu dance. Fulani Hausa have the Koroso dance. Every culture has a strong affinity for her food. The Ibibio Efik have the Afang soup amongst others. The Igbos, the Oha amongst others. The Yorubas, the Ewedu soup amongst others. The Fulani Hausas, Tuwo and Kaka. Interestingly too, the masquerades is another point to note which plays key roles in cultural celebrations. The Ibibio Efik have the Ekpo and Ekpe masquerades, etc. The Yoruba people have the Egungun and Eyo masquerades. The Igbo people have the Mmanu and Ijele masquerades, amongst others. The Tiv people have the Kwahai masquerade.
Glad to have you back. Yes, the show is still Rise and Shine, reaching you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. And of course, this is reaching you from channels, Spectrum Television, of course, channel 136, Startimes. Yeah, I'm sure you know the dial you're on. And quite frankly, the show is live on our different social media platforms on Facebook and on YouTube. So you can watch us live on Facebook and YouTube and use the handle at SpectrumTv NG. Yes, today is World Health Day. Interesting, right?
Very interesting. Super interesting. World Health Day is one of those reflective days for a lot of persons, especially those who are very health conscious.
Absolutely.
It's a day the World Health Organization has set aside. In fact, the whole world has set aside to give voices to different diseases plaguing the world and the universe, and also a day for us to reflect on our personal health and how we take care of ourselves, how we take care of the people around us. I mean, getting to always keep in mind that health is wealth, and
Absolutely.
regardless of our dreams, visions, and aspirations, if our health is not intact, if we're not in top shape, then we're not going to be able to do anything.
Of course.
It's a beautiful day.
And the theme for this year's celebration is our planet, our health. Now, looking at our planet, what are the dynamics we have playing out for us here? We're talking about ozone layer depletion, we're talking about climate change, we're talking about environmental pollution, quite a number of factors, a number of things affecting our planet that is degrading the health of individuals inhabiting the planet.
There are lots of things for us to definitely consider as we celebrate the World Health Day this 2022. I mean, recently we held the COP 2020 event where countries all over the world had to talk about the pollution, the greenhouse emission, and the goal to achieve a net zero emission target. And then you had countries coming out to pledge hundreds of dollars or thousands or billions of dollars to ensure that we actually achieve that, especially for the industrial nations and the big nations who have contributed significantly to the depletion of the ozone layer and the resultant effects from that. But then, particularly about back here at home in Akwa Ibom in Nigeria, where we have a whole lot of challenges when it comes to our health. For one, the doctor-patient ratio in Nigeria, it's at a very critical state. And then we have lots of preventable diseases that definitely should not have caused deaths, but are causing deaths on a daily basis. We also have the issues of negligence on the part of medical practitioners, which, of course, recently the House of Representatives have come out to say persons who are found culpable should be prosecuted. And then we have some very key diseases that I feel the Nigerian government should do a lot more to bring awareness if we are going to have a healthy society. Remember issues like the issue of sickle cell. Nigeria is leading in the burdens of persons who are sicklers and the carriers of the sickle cell gene. I remember issues like cancer, these are issues that is affecting the females, particularly when we talk about cervical cancer, which was a topic we recently talked about on this show. Issues like malaria, and of course, there are lots of
it's endless when you talk about some of the diseases, both viral and some communicable that we have prevalent in Nigeria precisely. But this is the 72nd edition of the World Health Day since its introduction. And picking that topic, our planet, our health, you would agree that to a large extent, the climate, a bad climate is a crisis. It's already a health crisis for individuals living in the society. And now taking it from that angle, I would like to attack it from another, or approach it from another angle. You look at the human activities. When you talk about climate, to a large extent, what happens in the climate in our planet is dependent on human activities. Look at what is prevalent. Like, we are approaching the farming season. We see a lot of bush burning. We see a lot of unhealthy farming practice, which of course is affecting the climate. And that being said, you know, we see deforestation as well. And, you know, to a large extent, deforestation, the trees that we plant actually takes in the carbon dioxide we emit and sends in oxygen that we breathe. And what constitutes health for human beings? The water we drink, the food we eat, and the air we breathe. Those three things, if you can breathe fresh air, drink clean water, and eat good food, then chances are that you might never fall sick. And looking at human activities, using chemical fertilizers in the soil is not really ideal for the soil, because experts will tell you that compost manure is best. And then for crops that are chemically produced, they will tell you it's not as healthy, health-wise, as some crops that have compost manure as a support system. And now looking at our water, we talked about open defecation. I think recently the House Senate actually passed a bill to stop open defecation in Nigeria. And which part of the world practice open defecation better than Nigeria? We know we have riverine areas all around, and you see people do that. And one thing is that you can do that here in Akwa Ibom, because the waters are flowing waters. It can flow and affect a larger chunk of portion. Even you see Bayelsa, you see rivers, Akwa Ibom, and it runs down to Benue and all of that. So you see that our waters, to a large extent, is polluted. So access to clean water is difficult. And that is why we have typhoid. That is why we have some other waterborne disease. And then looking at the climate, we no longer understand the season. We're in April, but we aren't seeing much rain as it used to. And I recall that last year we had rains up till December. And that's experts will tell you it's due to the ozone layer depletion. And then you see the heat of the sun when the sun is shining. The heat is like it will burn your skin. It wasn't so before. And now this, to a large extent, contributes to human health as well. So I feel with days like this, when we're talking about climate, our planet, our health, I think human activities should be geared towards trying to get a greener climate. And when you're talking about a greener climate, we should look at planting of trees. You can tell people to stop open defecation, because it's one thing to say, government say, okay, we've passed a bill to stop open defecation. Now, how many persons are complying to? Do you need a policeman to stand by your side to say, hey, don't defecate, or something like that? You know, when I say stubbornness, like in the NIN, when we're talking about NIN, I mean, people are practically stubborn. I think the most difficult set of things, or difficult set of people to control is maybe Nigerians, perhaps. It's time to be corrected.
Well, I still would beg to differ. We are not the most difficult set of people. It's just circumstantial that sometimes the government will wake up and make policies without necessarily giving us a way to obey those policies and implement them. Take, for instance, like the NIN SIM we've talked about. I mean, if the system is bad, at the end of the day, the process is going to be, you know, a total failure. I remember when I was growing up, we used to have these guys, they call them sanitary inspectors, and they used to come around. In those days, if your environment is not clean, you get arrested, you pay some fine. If maybe they come around you and then, they find human excretors littered around the place, then you're going to get arrested for it. Or if your latrine is filled up and then you've not done the needful to get it sorted out, you get arrested for it, because by then the entire environment, nobody's going to be able to perceive any fresh air. Bring it down to today, I think that can also be implemented. But then while you're implementing, I still know that back then people used to go scot-free, because you're looking at somebody who has just a little parcel of land and then has built a house, and then there is no other space for that person to build a restroom, so to speak. And when the inspector will come and there is no restroom, so the first one of the things they used to do then is to find a way to, get a neighbor to dash you some piece of land for you to build a befitting latrine for your family and yourself. And then open defecation in Nigeria is one issue that needs to be tackled. And if we must tackle it, then we have to put in place a system. Like you rightly mentioned, from Akwa Ibom to Cross River to Rivers to Bayelsa to Benue, our waters are intertwined and linked. And then whatever happens in one side would always find its way, to the other aspect of the waterways. So first thing first, go into the rural areas where these waterways are. What are you doing to provide the best possible restrooms or latrines or toilet facilities for them? Because sometimes these persons would naturally want to, do the right thing, but the means are not there, the funds are not there, and even when the funds are not there, I mean, growing up in the rural area, growing up in the riverine area, I know that it will cost you a lot more to have a functional toilet system in the waterways or in the riverine area. And that is not the kind of money that the average, struggling fisherman or the average struggling farmer is going to be able to afford to do the right thing. So when they know they can't afford it, the money that is needed to do the right thing, what do you want them to do? So the result to
do what they have,
what is possible. And of course they know, like you have the water comes, there are days you have the water coming in a larger volume and then it goes out. So when they excrete, they know that as the water comes, it takes it out. So you're not going to find it there. And then for those who opened this other system of latrine that we used to while I was growing up, you find out they just dig a trench and then there's a stick across it. And then when you want
inside the water,
not sometimes inside the water, sometimes inside the bushes. So when you go and then you just hold the stick and then do your business and go away, and that place is open, it still leads back to polluting the environment. But then we can solve the problem by providing the necessary system and doing the right feasibility study to understand how we can spread the right toilet facilities across the areas that are most prone to open defecation. Now, coming down to town, that would be a different ball game. I remember something happened, I think that was in January, and a colleague of ours had to, where we were gathering for a reach out program where we needed to do the publicity around town. And then he was pressed, and then he wanted to replace and pleaded to use the system, like, use himself. And then when he came, I was like, my goodness, people are really going through a lot. And what was the situation? That this beautiful house, built long time ago, has been in the heart of the city and had, as at that time, a functional toilet system. But with the new era, with the system, there's no place for them to upgrade to the new one. So what do? They still stick to using the old one. And that opens the females in that family to infections, it opens them to diseases, it opens them to everything. So if I want to use that typical example, I would say there are lots of persons within the heart of town who are still having
agree these things
issues.
Exist, and of course government should do a lot more rather than just enact basic education. I mean, there's what is called hygiene.
I love the fact that you've shifted your mind, your focus away from being educated, because we know not going to school does not necessarily guarantee one being educated and being, wise enough to take the right decision when it comes to the person's life.
So if each individual actually understands the need to maintain your environment, to keep your environment clean, to drink good water, clean water. I know we've talked about purification, methods of purifying water through chemicals, boiling and all of that. If a system fails you, I think it would be sad for you to fail yourself, because if you fail yourself, I think that's suicidal. I think every individual will always have to know on the side that if government fails you, I can't fail myself. And I know some persons used to say, don't think of what government can do for you.
Think of what you can do for
the
government.
So what would you do for God? It's just to praise God. And we've praised the government in our lives. I mean, who would be sick? At the point you were sick, who will pay your hospital bills? Which way would be better, to get sick and seek for medical help? You know, if we talk about the health system and the hospital, you wouldn't want to go there. So which is better?
Committed to living, still would come back to, resort to drinking boreholes, being properly treated, the water being treated. Because sometimes you buy water and then you drink the water and you perceive some kind of odor coming from it. And then water is safe or not safe enough for drinking or for other persons to drink. I remember having conversations with people and they tell you, oh, I bought so and so water and then there was smell in it, or I opened the sachet water to drink and there's a cobweb inside the sachet water with the water inside.
Well, I think a lot of persons do not actually. My daughter will come and